how's that affecting you? How much money did you leave on the table? How much money are you going to be leaving on the table? So what can be an impact question if your product or service is healthcare? Uh, if you don't get this fixed, what happens to your health? Do you believe that health is important to you? What have you done in the past to be able to fix your health? And if you don't do anything in the future, where's your health going to be like? You having this health issue, whatever it is, how is that going to affect your life and your family's life, your children's life? So think about whatever your product or service is that you're trying to sell, you have to have some impact questions so the customer can feel the cost of not doing business with you.
We the 3%ers. Yeah. We the 3%ers. Yeah. You gotta know what your worth. Don't need more than just words. We don't just talk and we live it. You want it, go get it and put in that word. We're the 3.
Hoorah! Welcome to 3% Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Steve Wilmer. Remember, this is not a therapy session, right? Get to work or get off my podcast. We're going to continue on today with your sales training. We're talking about questions. Just finished doing a training session for a couple of my clients, and it's the same thing people are struggling with. How do I know to sell? How do I know how to sell? How do I know the right questions to ask? We finished a little bit of that on the last episode, guys. Today we're going to dive into what I call probing questions. Remember, write this down. It is not what you say, it is what you ask. And the reason that a lot of business owners, especially solo entrepreneurs, are having a hard time with their business and making sales is because they do not know what to ask. So today we're going to dive into what I call probing questions. That's going to gather some information. We're going to find out about the why question, why it is important to ask the question why. And I may, depending on what kind of time I have today, I may talk about the difference between a product question and an authentic question. I might have to deal with that. A product question and an authentic question. Because you can ask questions about the product, but you got to learn how to ask authentic questions. Questions that have nothing to do with your product. Remember this, authenticity gets you paid more. And so that's why those questions are very important. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk about probing questions. So I want you to understand what a probing question is, right? So a probing question, it forces the customer to expand on whatever answer they gave you. Tell me more about that. Why do you feel that's important? Tell me a little bit about that. How did you get started with that? That's a really good probing question. So when I'm talking to clients and I'm helping them, I may be talking to a brand new person, no matter what their business is. And again, the whole end game, right? You got to start with the beginning in mind or with the end in mind. It's how can I show them how my business, what I do, business coaching, can help them in their business. So one of my favorite probing questions is once I start asking questions about their business is how did you get into that? I'm telling you right now, most salespeople do not ask that question. You're talking to somebody and you find out about their business. You want to know, well, how'd you get into that? How'd you get started with that? Because you want to find out about them. That's a great probing question. There's a great book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. You want to be able to get that book. And habit number 5, it says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's what sales is all about. That is why asking these questions is so important. Let's slow this down. You want to be able to understand what the problem is. You want to be able to understand the frustration the customer has. You want to be able to understand what they're going through, again, based on whatever your service is, whatever your product is, right? If you, websites. We have to talk about websites because I have somebody asking me about, how's your website? My website's fine. But if you sell websites, you got to ask me questions to find out what the problem is. So I have a business company. I have a sales training company. So if you have a business of websites, you should be asking me about my company. Seek to understand how I got into what I am doing. How'd you get into that? How long have you been doing it? Okay, you want to find out about my company. Same thing with you. Whatever your product is, whatever the problem it is that you believe that you're trying to solve for the customer, you got to start asking these type of probing questions for the customer. People love to talk about themselves. You like to talk about yourself. People love to talk about their business. They want to tell you how they started their business. They want to tell you why they started their business. If they don't have a business, ask about them, ask about their family. They want to talk about their family, their husband, their wife, their children. What are the kids doing? Especially grandparents, right? My God, grandparents will pull out a picture of their grandkids in a heartbeat. So these questions are strictly important for you to be able to understand what's important to the customer. Now listen, when you're asking these questions and you get an answer, I'm going to talk to you about a weak response and a strong response. So let's say you ask me a question. How'd you get into this? You know what? It kind of fell on my lap, or I got into it because I used to sell insurance over here. Here's a weak response. Okay, got it. No, that's a weak response. A strong response. Walk me through that exactly. How did you get started? What were some of your mindset when you first got started? Tell me more about that. So we want to make sure we transition when we do ask the questions from a weak response to a strong response. Now, also remember this. When you hear me talk about questions, you hear me say that the person asking the questions is the one that's in charge. But at the same time, remember, it's a conversation. It's not an interrogation. Okay, we talked about this. It's a conversation, not an interrogation. It is not question. It's question, a response. It's question, agreement. It's question and clarity. It's question and it's something else. You got to be in a conversation. People do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? KLT. So if I ask you a question and you give me a response, I turn around, I may ask a clarifying question. Tell me a little bit more about that. You may say something and then I chime in. You know what? I know exactly how you feel. Oh, no kidding. You've been married that long? I've been married this long. You got how many kids? No kid. Man, I got kids as well. You got what? Boys, girls? I got 2 girls. I got 2 boys. What about you? If I'm talking to a business owner, oh, I'm struggling with this. You know what, man? I've been through that as well. I totally understand that. I've struggled with this. I've struggled with that. Tell me how you handled that. No kidding. I never thought about it. Maybe that's a good way I can handle this in my business. So it doesn't matter if you're talking to a business owner or if you're talking to an individual who doesn't have a business. When you ask these questions, please make sure that you're not interrogating them, but it's an actual conversation. Make sense? All right. Let's keep it moving. So strong responses, right? Walk me through that. What do you mean by that? Give me an example. Because when I give you an example, now you truly start to understand the problem, and then you can start working on the solution. Hopefully, it's what you are trying to sell, your solution. So, the purpose of probing questions, they expose a real problem. We're not talking about surface issues. We're talking about deep-rooted issues. What's the issue in my business? What's the issue in my health? What's the issue in my service? What's the issue in my product? Whatever your business is that you're trying to sell, whatever your service is that you're trying to sell, whatever your product is that you're trying to sell, you got to find out what their issue truly is, deep-rooted issue that you can be able to help them. You got to create an emotional connection to the problem. Remember, 82% of people buy things based on emotion, not logic. Unfortunately, most business owners, you try to sell your product or your service based on logic, and you're not asking enough questions. One of the best questions you can ever ask is, how does that make you feel? This morning, I was on an entrepreneur, a meeting where a bunch of entrepreneurs meet together. It's called the social circle, right? And David was talking about specific questions that you want to ask. And he was talking with a young lady, and he was like, what problem do you solve? What kind of emotional attachment, do people have to be able to help that? And she couldn't answer that question. She had no idea. You should know. Guys, if you got a business you're trying to sell, you got to know the emotional attachment that you have, that you can ask the right questions. What is my business? I train solo entrepreneurs, business owners, how to increase their revenue to 6 figures. So I have emotional questions to ask. One of my favorite questions to ask, we're going to talk about it later. How much money did you leave on the table last year because you couldn't sell? That's emotional. That makes them think. You see what I'm saying? So my business is attached to income. How much money are you going to leave on the table this year if you don't do anything different? Where's your life right now because you're not earning enough income because you're not making enough sales? Do you truly have a business or do you have a hobby? I think it was maybe Mark Cuban that says, if you can't sell, you don't own a business. You see, there's an emotional attachment to income. Whether you're a business owner or not, we all have an emotional attachment to money. So depending on what your business is, what your product is, what your service is, you should have at least 2 or 3 emotional questions that you can ask to your prospect. Slow the conversation down. Remember, the person that's asking the questions is the one that's in charge. Now, not every time you're going to be able to just take your time with the conversation. There are going to become sometimes you may be on the phone, somebody's in a hurry. Don't rush the process. Don't have commission breath, right? Commission breath is like bad breath. Nobody likes bad breath. Everybody hates bad breath. Commission breath is the same thing. Your customer can tell if you're rushing through the process, if you're just trying to make a sale. So if now's not the right time, we need to get together another time. If now is not the right time, we need to slow this down. Let's talk another time, because you want to make sure that you're not rushing this process and you're asking the right questions. Now, let's talk about the different types of probing questions. Number 1, clarifying questions. What do you mean you've tried that before? What do you mean that you've struggled? What do you mean there's a gap? See, a lot of times people say there's an issue here, there's an issue here. I don't have this, I don't have that. Really, tell me more about that. Let's make sure that you clarify the question so you don't miss it. The next one is called an expansion probe. What else? So they may give you an answer, but you want to expand that answer. Okay, is there anything else? Tell me, what am I missing? Oh, that's a great question I love to ask. Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything? I heard you say this, I heard this, I heard that. Did I miss anything? Make them expand on some of the answers they give you. Tell me more about that. Why do you feel that? Can you clarify? How about that one? Can you clarify that for me? And impact probing questions. This is one of my favorite ones. How's that affecting you? I already gave you one of my other ones. How much money did you leave on the table? How much money are you going to be leaving on the table? So again, you got to be able to take these impact questions and make it towards whatever your product or service is. Okay? If it's you're selling something in the healthcare. Matter of fact, that was this morning. It was something to do with healthcare. So what can be an impact question if your product or service is healthcare? If you don't get this fixed, what happens to your health? Do you believe that health is important to you? What have you done in the past to be able to fix your health? And if you don't do anything in the future, where's your health going to be like? You having this health issue, whatever it is, how is that going to affect your life and your family's life, your children's life? So think about whatever your product or service is that you're trying to sell. You have to have some impact questions so the customer can feel the cost of not doing business with you. And then a process probe. How are you currently handling this? What are you currently doing right now? We're going to get to the why questions, right? Why haven't you done anything? And here's another good why question we're about to dive into. why do you feel like now was the time to move forward with this? Which takes me right into my why question. I love why questions. And too many salespeople, you are not asking enough why questions. They are so powerful, so simple, so short, but so powerful. So let me tell you why works. That makes no sense, right? Let me tell you why questions work. Here's why I personally love them. It makes the customer dig through their own reasoning. And what they find out is, you know what? I was thinking about this all wrong. It makes them dig through their own plan. And you want to walk them through their plan. Now, this is important. If you ask a why question the wrong way, it could backfire on you if it sounds like what I just said earlier, if it sounds like an interrogation. So I'll give you an example. If I were to ask a customer a why question and I were to phrase it like this, why don't you want to do that? Why you ain't did nothing to this point? See, that sounds interrogative. Why can be very interrogative. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Remember, enthusiasm beats everything. Sales, listen to me. Sales is so much more than a word track. I mean, we're going to be talking about body language. We're going to be talking about leaning in. We're going to be talking about setting back. We're going to be talking about mirroring. Okay, there's so many different things. So it can backfire on you if you ask a why question the wrong way. So again, going back to the examples. If I said to you, well, why haven't you done anything up to this point? That could seem like I'm truly trying to interrogate you. But what if I said something like this? Well, give me a reason why. Like, tell me why up until this point you haven't made if it's my business, give me a reason why up until this point you haven't truly made the decision to finally do something about it. You haven't made the decision to get on the track to be able to earn that six figures. Kind of help me understand why. Walk me through that reasoning. It's pretty much the same question, but it's not just what we say, it's how we say it. So it can't sound like you're interrogating them. It can't sound like you're judging them, because then they get on the defense. So let's talk about a controlled why. I'm telling you, this is so powerful. Help me understand why that's important to you. I'm curious, why is now the time? And here's another one I ask a lot. Why would you not want to take care of that? Help me understand, why would you not want to do something about that? A lot of times I already know the answer to these questions I'm asking. Like if I said to you, if you're a business owner, like, why would you not want to earn six figures? I already know the answer to that. Everybody goes, what are you talking about? I do want to earn six figures. Really? Okay, well, if you do want to earn six figures, why haven't you done anything up to this point to be able to do that? Help me understand that. Walk me through that. Walk me through your reasoning. Like, why have you not taken a sales course? Why are you avoiding sales? Help me understand your mindset here. Right? Why would you not take a sales course? If you truly said the three most powerful words to overcome an objection, you told me you want to earn six figures, but you turn around and say you're scared to sell, you don't know how to sell. So help me understand, if you want to earn six figures, why have you not taken a sales course? Why have you not pursued that? Why have you not done anything about it? Help me understand your reasoning. Why? You gotta start asking the question why, regardless of what your service is, what your product is. Okay? So ask why. Now, let me give you these. Clarify, probe, pressure, impact. Clarify, probe, pressure, impact. 4 questions. What do you mean when they give you an answer to something? What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that. That's a clarify. Probe. And what's causing that? How did you get there? How did you arrive to that? Or why haven't you gotten to that point yet? You got to make sure you're probing, make them go deeper. We talked about that, right? Pressure. Why hasn't that been fixed yet? Help me understand, what's the holdup? Why have you not taken a sales course? Why do you not want to earn six figures? Why would you not be willing to do what it takes to earn six figures? Pressure. And then impact. I love the impact questions, right? How much is that costing you monthly by not doing that? How much money did you leave on the table last year because you didn't take a sales course? How much money are you going to leave on the table this year? If you don't change anything that you're doing right now regarding sales, how much money are you going to leave on the table? And how is that going to affect your household? Clarify, probe, pressure, impact. Rule of thumb, I like to ask at least 4 questions. I'm just talking about just straight 4 questions. There may be some probing questions in the middle there, obviously some impact questions, but a rule of thumb is I like to ask a minimum of 4 questions. And a lot of times people will ask, Steve, is there a specific number of questions you should ask? Or this is one of the questions they'll ask me is, how do you know when you asked enough questions? Or how do you know when you might be making the customer mad because you keep asking questions? Here's how I do it. If I ask a customer a question and they answer it, I'm going to ask another question. If people don't want to talk to you, they're not going to answer your question. So you will know that you've gone too far. But as long as you answer my questions, I'm going to ask another question and another question and another question. So for me, there's no set number of questions that you should be asking. But I ask a minimum of 4 questions. Now, please don't take, Steve said, ask 4 questions and no more. No, I didn't. If I ask 4 questions, you answer that 4th question, guess what I'm going to do? Ask a 5th one. If you answer that 5th question, what am I going to do? Ask number 6 and number 7 and number 8 and number 9. They're going to be probing questions. They're going to be clarifying questions, right? They're definitely going to be impact questions as well. So continue to make sure we're asking those type of questions. Let me give you, I'm going to call these 10 rapid fire questions that you want to have in your arsenal. Okay? These 10 questions you want to be able to have. So a lot of times what I have to do, guys, I have to go back through some of my trainings and watch my own recordings just to kind of see some of the things, because it's like it's all up here and I'm trying to get it from up here to you. I'm trying to get it from up here on the paper. So doing a recording, coaching some of my clients, and I didn't realize all the questions that I was asking. So as I'm going through the recordings, I wrote down the questions. So let me give you an example of some of the questions that I asked. Question number 1. What's not working right now? I don't think you understand how powerful that question is. I don't think you realize how powerful that question is. And that should be your first question. Tell me this, what's not working right now? Again, depending on who you're selling to, depending on your product or your service, find out what's not working right now. Because, man, they start to unload. They start telling you every single thing. Remember, if you ask the right questions and you listen to your customer, they will tell you how to sell them something. That should be your first question. What's not working right now? What's your issue right now? What's your problem right now? What's your pain point right now? Boo! They open up like a book. They tell you everything. Here's question number 2. They'll start telling you what's not working, and they may say something like, we tried this, we tried that, yada, yada, yada. They say something like that. Here's another question. Why do you feel that hasn't worked in the past? Why do you feel that hasn't worked? What do you feel like went wrong? Is there anything you feel like could have been done better? Man, I'm telling you, like I said earlier, they want to talk about their business. They want to talk about the mistakes they made. They want to talk about the pain they feel. They want to get it off their chest. They want that the frustration comes through. And again, they are literally telling you how to sell them something if you got the right product or the right service. Probing question. What do you mean by that exactly? Don't just take that, we're struggling. We can't make sales. We can't do this. Well, what do you mean by that exactly? Well, we tried that. Well, what do you mean by that exactly? Another probing question. They're going to give you more information. Another question I asked. This was the guy said, well, how long you been dealing with that? How long has that been going on? That's a pressure question. That's a pain point question. How long you've had bad health? How long have you had a bad website? How long have you had issues with this? How long have you had issues with that? Oof, forever. Oh my goodness, forever. And it's going to be a long time. And here's why you know it's going to be a long time. Very rarely, because it's human behavior, very rarely do we have a situation or issue and we take care of it right then, unfortunately. Most people, including myself, most people will let things linger on until they start to feel this pain. And then they're like, I got to get something done about this. So that's a very good question. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a while. How long you been dealing with that? How long has this been going on? It's been going on for a while. That's the reason they're talking to you, because they want to know if you can fix their problem. What have you tried so far? Now, in my business, I want to know if they work with somebody else. What have you tried so far? Are you currently using anyone right now? Tell me what went wrong with that. Tell me what went well with that. I want to know what I'm up against. I want to know if there was somebody that we're using before as competition. I want to know the pitfalls. I want to know what they did so I don't make the same mistakes. I want to know what they didn't do so I can show the value and show how I can do that. How is that affecting your business right now? Let me tell you something. I ask that question, but I already know the answer. I want them to realize. I think they said a lawyer never asks a question they don't know the answer to. I already know the answer to it. But I ask the question because I want them to realize the pain. If they've been feeling the pain, I want them to relive that pain. Again, that's that pain point question, right? That impact question. And again, my favorite one, what is it costing you right now? What did you leave on the table? How much did you leave on the table? And again, I know every business, every product, whatever the case may be, it's different. You have to be able to realize how you can phrase that question. Yours may not be a money thing. You may not be, depending on what you're selling, may not be able to be a how much money did you leave on the table. But you've got to figure out, what is that question? It's the question of loss. It's called FOMO, the fear of missing out, right? The fear of loss. I missed out on this. I didn't make this. I didn't have this. You got to figure out what that question is. Question number 8. Why do you feel that now is the time? Why do you feel like right now is the time? The reason I ask that question, I'm setting them up because here's what I don't want to hear. Let me think about it. I'll get back with you later. Let me ponder on it. So I want to be able to know right now, why do you feel like now is the time? Or am I missing it? Is now not the time? And if not now, when? Number 9, what if nothing happens? Like if you don't change anything at all, where are you going to be? I already know the answer. I need them to say it. I need them to state it. And what does it look like if the problem was solved? So I want you to notice now, all the first 9 questions, a lot of it has a lot to do with maybe a fear. Again, missing out, what I don't have, the impact, the bad. I want to be able to finish on a high note. I want them thinking higher. So my last question, what would it look like if the problem was solved? Like, if all of a sudden, here's one of my favorite questions to ask. You may think it was crazy, but somebody asked me this question years ago, and I thought it was crazy when they asked me until it happened. Ask this question. What if your annual income suddenly became your monthly income? And then sit back. That's the question I ask. I'm a sales coach. I help people make money. I take people that were making, $30,000, $40,000 a year to make $30,000, $40,000 a month. They never thought about it before. They never thought it was possible before. You're making $50,000 a year, we can help you make $50,000 a month. When that question was asked to me, I didn't believe it until it happened. So now I got you thinking about that. And they'll start thinking, they'll start dreaming, they'll start talking about all the things they can do. Whatever your business is, you got to be able to take that question and you got to be able to shape it around your business. Here's your pain right now. What if we could 5 exit, 10 exit, 12 exit, 30 exit? You got to be able to take that question and ask the customer that. Don't rush it. Don't skip the steps. Let's make sure you're asking those questions. Now, at the end of the day, you got to be able to get the sale. And so you got to have what I call a closing question. And I keep my closing questions very simple. So my closing question to a sale is, how do you want to pay for that, monthly or yearly? Not do you want to get started? It's how do you want to get started? Well, how do you want to get started today? You want to do it monthly? You want to do it yearly? So that's a closing question. You have to ask for the sale. In sales, you have to ask for the sale. Don't procrastinate. Don't put it off. Ask for the money. I know you feel weird. I know you feel strange. I know your heart is tightening. I know your heart is beating fast. You got to ask for the sale. How do you want to pay for that? Monthly, or if you have an annual price, how do you want to pay for that? If you don't have an annual price, you can say, well, how would you like to pay for that today? MasterCard or Visa? How do you want to pay for that today? Bank draft or credit card? But you have to ask for the sale. So here's your mission. Here's what you got to do. I want you, if you don't know the questions, I want you to write them down first. Don't just go out there half-cocked and winging it, right? We already talked about it. Professionals use scripts, amateurs wing it. I want you to get 4, at least 4, more is better, but at least 4 probing questions. All right? And I want you to use those 4 probing questions on your next prospect, the next time you're talking to somebody trying to make a sale. But I want you to also have at least 3 why questions. Why? Very important question. Start creating what I call a cadence of questions. I ask a question and then I listen. I ask another question, then I'll listen. Then I ask a probing question, a clarifying question. I want to ask an impact question. Okay? So get some probing questions, get some why questions, write them down, practice the questions first before you go out there and start using them with the prospect. Team, I guarantee you, if you'll start with these questions, it's going to help you close more sales. All right, 3%ers, this has been your mindset shift for the week. Until next week, hoorah.
We're the 3%ers. Yeah. We're the 3%ers. Yeah.